Hey, before I get started with my message tonight, first off, I just want to introduce myself. If it is your first time here tonight, my name is Taylor Robinson, and I'm one of the pastors here on staff. And here's the thing, okay? There's a few things that get me excited in life. Of course, Survivor and Survivor finale nights, okay? Of course, whenever the Padres make the playoffs every 15 years. But I also get so much joy and excitement out of TNL, out of hanging out with all of you. So thank you for blessing my 2022. It was so much fun hanging out with you. Super excited in 2 weeks to be back and just seeing what 2023 has for all of us. I was thinking about my family, and you have to understand, my family growing up and still to this day, we are not spontaneous people at all. And when I say my family, I'm talking about my parents, I'm talking about my sister. We never really did anything spontaneous, last minute. Our whole family, we are super planned and super organized. I think that the most spontaneous thing that I had ever done with our family was when I was 8 years old. I woke up, came downstairs, and my dad said, "Taylor, I think today we are gonna go see How the Grinch Stole Christmas in 2 hours from now." And that's right when Jim Carrey's The Grinch came out. And I was like, what the heck? I did not know about this in advance. And now we're gonna go and do it? Okay, pretty lame, right? That's the most spontaneous thing in our family. We just never did anything spontaneous before, but we went to watch The Grinch, and it was awesome. I love The Grinch. I gotta admit, my favorite Christmas movie is Elf. Anyone else out there, Elf is your favorite movie? Okay. There's a lot of great Christmas movies, but I would say that How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey is probably on my top 3 list of Christmas movies. And I remember after watching that, it really introduced me to the book, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because I don't think I had ever read it beforehand. I knew of Dr. Seuss books, but for some reason, that book I had not read. And I have that book with me, okay? Gotta understand, I love reading, and this right here is now my favorite book because there's 5 words in the whole thing. But here's this book, and I just want to read the first few pages of it just to remind the 1% out there that doesn't remember how the Grinch story began and what it's all about. So here's what it says. It says, "Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings," he snarled with a sneer. "Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here." Then he growled with his Grinch fingers, nervously drumming, "I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming." And for those that know how the Grinch story goes, he is going to come up with this plan where he's going to pretend to be Santa. He's going to go down. He's going to steal everything from Whoville, and he's waiting for Christmas for everyone to be so upset and super sad, but he hears them down there singing, and it's an incredible story that I bet all of you already know it. But here's what I realized about the book and about this character, the Grinch, is that the Grinch isn't just in a fictitious story. In life, there are real Grinches. And I want us to talk about, for the next few moments, the very first ever Christmas Grinch that I can think of that the Bible talks about. And it's found in Matthew chapter 2, and it has to do with this guy named Herod. King Herod. And before I read it, you got to understand that King Herod was this evil ruler. He was always threatened by the people in his life that they were going to come and try to steal the throne away from him. history tells us that he actually murdered both of his sons because he felt threatened that they would take over the throne from him. He was married to a lot of different women, but his favorite wife, he actually killed her because he thought that she was plotting with one of her sons to take over. There were aunts, there were uncles, there were so many people that he killed that Caesar Augustus actually said that it would be better to be King Herod's pig than to be a family member, because King Herod was actually part Jewish, so he didn't eat pig. He wouldn't kill a pig. So it would be better to be his pig than to be related to him. So this is the guy that we are about to read about. Now, here's what it says in Matthew chapter 2, starting in verse 1. It says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." Now it says King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law, and he asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" Now, they're going to go on and they're going to tell him that he's supposed to be born in Bethlehem, and they're going to quote one of the prophets that tells him that. And then it continues when it says, "Then King Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, 'Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him too.'" Now, do you think that was King Herod's intention? No, that was never his intention. It says, after this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and they worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And the story continues that God is going to appear to them in a dream and tell them not to go back to King Herod, and they're going to leave the land. And King Herod is going to get so upset that he was actually deceived, so that he's going to say that any male child that's 2 or younger that lives in or near Bethlehem actually has to be murdered. But because they ran away to Egypt, Jesus did not die because of that. It's a crazy story about King Herod, this evil king who I believe is the first Christmas Grinch that we are introduced to. And why do I tell you this? Well, because I believe that if we aren't careful, we can turn into the Grinch. That if we aren't careful, that if we aren't intentional in our life, we can actually turn into the Grinch. Now, the first thing that I see that compares the Grinch in How the Grinch Stole Christmas and King Herod is the fact that they were both disturbed people, all right? Now, the Grinch was disturbed up on his mountaintop whenever he heard the singing happening down below and all the joy that was happening because of the Christmas season. He was so disturbed by that he wanted to do something about it. And then we see King Herod, he's a king. He lives up on this castle in this mountaintop, and he is disturbed by the news that these wise men are looking for Jesus. He is disturbed that he was born. And it also says that everyone else was disturbed. Everyone else was disturbed because if the king is disturbed and he's an evil king and you know that he just kills people whenever he wants, well, then you're going to be disturbed as well. And it says that he is disturbed by Jesus. And the question becomes, why would he be disturbed by Jesus? Well, because he looked at it as a threat. I love how the wise men said, who's the king of the Jews, who's born king of the Jews? Jesus was already given the title king when he was born. It wasn't someday he was going to be king. It was initially he was going to be king. And King Herod knew that threatened his reign. It threatened his throne. It threatened his agenda. And because of that, King Herod was deeply disturbed. He was deeply disturbed because his agenda could be totally messed up. The question I have for all of you listening in today is this: are you disturbed by Jesus? And I think especially in a church setting, our initial gut reaction is to say, well, no, I'm not disturbed by Jesus at all. Now, yeah, if you're just checking it out, if you wouldn't say you're a Christian, you might be like, yeah, I'm not really into that whole Jesus thing, but disturbed is a pretty strong word. But the reality is I've been doing youth ministry for 10, 11 years now, and I've seen so many students that were on fire, committed in middle school. They were in salt, they were in light, they showed up to everything, and now they aren't following Jesus anymore. Now they don't go to church. I believe that at some point they got disturbed by Jesus. They got disturbed, and why would they be? Well, here's this verse, if you could throw it up on the screen. It says this in Matthew, 16? Can't fully remember. It'll go up eventually. I know the verse. Okay, it says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. This is saying, if you want to be a Christian, then what you have to do is you have to deny yourself. Deny the things that you want to do. That your body tells you should do, that people say that you should do, all those things that you really want to do. It says you deny your own agenda, you pick up your cross. Jesus picked up his cross and it led him to his death. It says you die to the things that you want to do and you follow Jesus. And this is why it's disturbing. Because we all want to do things our own way. We want to make life about us. We put ourselves as the God of our own universe, and that's not what Jesus is about. Jesus says following me means you follow me. It means you die to the way that you want to live, and you follow Jesus. And this is disturbing. There's a story about this guy who he went over to Israel, and he was a pastor. He went to Israel. He was there on a trip with his church, which some of us on staff are going to pretty shortly. It's pretty exciting. January 1st, we're going. But he went to Israel, and when he was there, he bought a nativity scene. Okay, nativity scene is the Jesus in the manger. You probably have a nativity scene that you're setting up right now that really is not accurate at all, because the wise men story we just read, they aren't even at the birth of Jesus. This was potentially up to 2 years, probably not quite 2 years, but almost 2 years. So that whole thing isn't exactly true. But he buys this nativity scene, and when he's flying back home, you see the airport security they're super strict there in Tel Aviv, in the airport. And they look through all of his stuff, and they pull out the nativity scene because he's bringing it on his carry-on. And they looked at every little thing. They looked at the wise men, and they examined the sheep, and they examined baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and they looked at every little piece super carefully, and then they put it through the x-ray. And the pastor was like, excuse me, it's just this nativity scene. Why are you looking at it so carefully? And he simply said, well, we're examining it carefully because we need to see if it's explosive or not. The reality is the nativity scene is explosive. It's dangerous because it tells us that we can't live lives the way that we want to live our life. And that's disturbing to some people. But can I tell you this? It's worth it. That following Jesus is worth it. can you put part 2 of that verse up, Tom? This is what it says after what we just read. It says, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. It says, if you want to do life your own way, it's not going to happen. You're going to get off track. You're going to realize, I have no joy in this lifestyle at all. But if you give up your life for Jesus, if you say, there's something greater than me, that I want to fulfill my calling, I want to fulfill my purpose, I want to follow Jesus, I want to take up that mission, that's where you will find your life. That's where you will find satisfaction. Let me plead with you and tell you, following Jesus is worth it. It may seem disturbing at first, but the reality is following life your own way is the most disturbing thing there is. It leads you far places that you don't want to go. But let me ask you, are you disturbed by Jesus? Now, when I compare Grinch and Herod, I also think about how deceitful they both were. You know, we know the story with the Grinch. He dresses up like Santa, and he's trying to deceive the people of the town. He's trying to deceive Cindy Lou Who that he is actually Santa. He puts on a costume. He puts on a mask, and he tries to be someone that he is not. Herod does that in the story as well, right? What was the deceiving thing that he did? He said, go tell me where Jesus is so that I can go and worship him. He was trying to deceive that I'm a worshiper of God. I'm here to go and worship him. But he was deceitful because that was never his intention. And it's so sad, like looking back at my life, because there's been times where I've tried to deceive that I'm a worshiper. I remember when I was in the 11th and 12th grade ministry here when I was a junior in high school. And at that time, like the worship culture, it was like everyone would sit down, and then slowly when you started to kind of like feel it, then you would stand up. And then when you'd feel it even more, you would start to raise your hands. And I remember there was a season in my life, I always wanted to sit 1 or 2 rows in front of this girl that I really liked. And she was a strong Christian. Well, actually, at the time she was. I don't think she is anymore, but so that's another story. But I wanted to impress her with my spirituality. So I remember I would be the first one to stand up, like literally like 10 seconds into the song. Like, look how spiritual I am. I'm the first one in the room. There's a couple hundred people here. I'm standing, and I would raise my hands because I wanted her to see me and be like, that is a man of God right there. I want to date that man. First off, that did not work at all, okay? Did not work at all. So I was trying to deceive. I was trying to be someone that I was not for a short period. Then I became an actual worshiper, okay, after that. But in that moment, I was deceitful. I was just like the Grinch. I was just like Herod. So the question I have for you is, are you deceitful? Are you deceiving others? Are you trying to be someone or act like someone that you really aren't? Do you come here to TNL, to our events, and you try to act like you're this perfect Christian because you want the leaders to like you, and you act like you're perfect, and you never say a cuss word, but then the next day at school, that's all you do? I wonder who here is deceiving others. And sometimes we deceive others because we have a corrupt agenda. We're trying to get something out of it. But then I also think sometimes we deceive others, not because we have a corrupt agenda, but because we're scared of what people think about us if they actually knew us. So I think we put up this facade. We try to act like we're this perfect person, we're this perfect Christian. Here's the thing. Can you put up the next verse, Tom? I think I typed it out. It's in 1 Samuel. It says this. It says, the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The Lord really knows what you're going through. He really knows what you're struggling with. There's no mask, there's no facade great enough for him to not know. He knows exactly the sins you're committing. He knows exactly the things you're doing that you don't want anyone else in this room to know. But he still loves you. That's how I know that God loves me, is because he really knows me, but he really loves me. But we're scared. We're scared to be open because we don't know what other people are gonna think. And yes, there are judgy people out there. Yes, there are people that are gonna be like, seriously, you do that? But here's what I've realized happens more times than not, is when you open up about something, like in a small group or just with your friends, oftentimes people say 2 very powerful words. They say, me too. They say, I struggle with that as well. Guys, as we enter 2023, let's not deceive others. Let's be open, let's be honest. I know it's scary, I know it's hard, but I want this community right here to be a community that loves no matter what. That when people open up, we don't look down in judgment, but we're there to love them, to help them through it, to walk them through them. And I believe in you guys. I believe that you can do that. I believe in this community that we're there to walk right alongside each other. But if you want to be like the Grinch, you're going to deceive others because that's what he did. Now, for this last point, worship team's going to come back up. Maybe just save raising the screen for a second. But the last thing in looking at King Herod and the Grinch is the Grinch distanced himself from joy. He was up on the mountaintop. Everyone down in Whoville was having fun. They were singing. They were enjoying the Christmas season. But he distanced himself. He was up on the mountain. Herod as well, he distanced himself. We see the wise men, they go, they find Jesus, and it says that they were filled with joy. It says they were overjoyed. And that's a type of joy that Herod was not able to experience. He was not able to experience that joy. The question I have for you is, are you distancing yourself from joy, from true joy? And I believe a lot of you in this room say no. I am happy. There's a lot of good things in my life. This Christmas season, a lot of you are going to be happy because you're going to get gifts that you asked for. And you're going to think your life's great. Look what I get. But let me tell you, you're confusing happiness and joy. They're completely different. How come next year you're going to have a new Christmas list? Because the things you asked for this year don't make you happy anymore. They didn't bring true joy to your life. So here's what I'm imploring of you, that you don't keep yourself from joy, but you pursue joy. You pursue Jesus. And let me tell you, you can find that true joy no matter what you're going through. Because yes, some of you are happy right now, but there's another portion that your life is not good at all. With things going on at home, at school, with your friends, and your life is not good. It's in moments like that, I think of the Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul, incredible guy, but he had a very hard life. He actually would be in prison, and eventually his head would be cut off for following Jesus. And while he's in prison, in the book of Philippians, he says, rejoice. He's not able to be in his prison cell and watch Netflix, super excited about the next show that brings joy to us. He's not in his prison cell with the new iPhone. He's not in his prison cell trying on his new Nikes. He's not there with all his friends. But despite that, he says, rejoice, because he knew true joy. He knew that true joy is not about our circumstances. It's that even when you are going through bad circumstances, there's a God that is with you walking through that. Our circumstances may yell terror, but Jesus whispers peace. And I pray for that peace over all of you tonight and all of you in 2023. That you allow yourself to eventually become like the Grinch in this story, not like Herod, whose heart grew, who became open to it. I don't know who here is open, who here is not. I think that this would be a success in 2023 if more people just said, God, I'm open. I don't fully know what that means and what that looks like, but I'm ready for true joy. I'm ready to follow you because I know there is true life, there is true joy following you. Last verse I'm reading, it says this in Psalm 16:11. It says, in your presence, there is fullness of joy. Not in the gifts you get, not in the people you surround yourself by, but it's in your presence, God, there is fullness of joy. That joy is being offered to you. It is the best gift that you can ever receive. I hope that we receive that gift, each and every person here. If you all can just bow your heads right where you are, we could turn the lights down as well. I just want this time to be an open time between you and God. If you're in here, and this is complete bravery right now. This is just being honest. But after tonight's message, if you feel like there is anywhere that you are like the Grinch, all eyes closed, please. Can you just raise your hand up in the air and say, I feel like, yes, maybe I've been disturbed by Jesus. Maybe I've deceived others. Maybe I've distanced myself from joy. I want to pray for you, but can you just raise your hand in this room if you want to be open to the things that God wants you to do in 2023? Can you just raise your hand? Father, I just want to thank you for the bravery tonight of people being open and honest. People saying that I've been like the Grinch, I've been like Herod. God, I pray for those people. I pray that you tell them right now in this moment that you love them, that you really like them. Remind them that greater life is found following you. And God, I pray for everyone that raised their hand saying, I'm open to the Lord in 2023. I pray that to be true. I pray for faith tonight. I pray for courage tonight. I pray for trust tonight. Thank you for the love that you've given to each and every person here. Let us be excited for the things that you have for us in the new year. It's in your name. So as we close tonight, we want to experience the joy that community gives us, that church gives us, that songs give us. And we're gonna do one last song that I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not a worship song, okay? But it's also not a country song either. But this song is a classic that we like to do here, that we have a lot of fun with. And I want to experience joy with all of you as a community up here in the front. We're singing 12 Days of Christmas. It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be long, but it's gonna be crazy. There might be some screaming happening. Come on up, let us sing.